Well, good morning, everybody. We are Happy Mother's Day. We are here with Jerry and Jenny Sanders and a very special and curious guest, and we'll let them introduce him in just a second. So, why don't you, Jerry? Why don't you tell me who's joining us right there in the red shirt?
This is our son Teddy, um, the love of our life,
Absolutely.
the joy of our life right now. We're just happy to be here and kind of share our testimony.
Absolutely. Well, he's a cute one, I'll tell you that, and happy. That is a happy baby. Most of the he's been happy for me, so that's all right. So Jenny, on your social media page the other day, I saw a post on April 28th, 2020, that said "Gotcha Day." That was the caption. So, what does that mean?
Gotcha Day is adoption finalization day, and wherein his adoption was final, done, kaput. No more lawyers, no more agencies, no more money,
Yeah.
no more headache, no more waiting, no more proving our worthiness as parents. We just got to be done and officially call him our son. So we celebrated that day.
That is fantastic, and you should have celebrated that day. That's an incredible blessing. So we're on this side of things, and we can see how happy they are, and how happy he is, and how peaceful and settled, and everything is great. This road to this moment here, though, has not been the easiest road that you've ever taken in your life, right? So let's kind of circle back, because we started at the end, because it's a happy ending. It's Mother's Day. We want a happy ending. But it's not always been, Mother's Day in particular has not always been a happy day. And I have to say this, part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with them today is because I have had women in my life, in my family, and certainly in church through the years that for whom Mother's Day is very, very bittersweet. So on the one hand, most of the time people are trying to honor their mothers and celebrate and be happy and grateful for their mothers. But at the same time, so many women grieve on this day because it's painful for those who've not been able to have kids. So can we circle all the way back to the beginning of Mr. and Mrs. Jerry Sanders and kind of pick it up from there and talk about where you started and the desire to have kids and all of that, so we can just kind of walk down this road with you.
So this July we will have been married 10 years. And we weren't spring chickens when we got married. So I mean, it's kind of unspoken, but we, wanted to start a family as soon as possible. And year after year, that just kept not happening. And there were some doctor's visits and test run and experimental things, and that just led nowhere. And really, in my spirit, I didn't feel led to pursue that any further or do anything that was unnatural. To each their own, but for me, I just never felt pulled in that direction. So, I guess 5 or 6 years into our marriage, we, a friend of mine, had adopted her daughter through foster care. Her daughter came to live with her at 2 weeks old, and then, it took a little while, but they ended up adopting her. And it just worked out seamlessly for them. And she was a big advocate of the fostering to adopt thing. And so we thought, well, hey, we have all this faith in God. We believe, we have the faith of a mustard seed. We just know that this is how he's going to grow our family too. And we just felt called to that, to adopt. And that's how we were going to do it. And really, one of the reasons behind that too was financially, because, the thought of privately adopting just seemed like this impossible thing, because that's what people do who have money, which we didn't have.
So
And we just didn't think that was an avenue that we could do. So anyway, we pursued that.
So this felt like an answered prayer, right?
Yeah.
That this was
We thought this was
a real need.
Yeah.
That you
This
had,
is how God's going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we thought it was going to be easy.
Yeah, and this follows 5 or 6 years of marriage where you were also trusting and believing God for healing or for
yeah.
intervention
For a
or whatever you want to
miracle,
call
pregnancy, yeah.
it. Yeah, so that you could have that Hannah experience,
Right.
and now your pains
Right.
turn to joy, and you're carrying this child, and that's just not what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So now you see this sort of light open up, and you feel like this is the path that God's
Yeah, because
sending
we
them.
felt peace about it.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can look back and remember us clearly feeling peace about pursuing that.
Yeah.
So we ended up taking in a little girl who was 3 months old at the time, and we asked all the right questions that we thought.
Of course.
Like, you know, we didn't. They told us there were no family members that could step up for her, and that, you know, everything looked good. That we thought, you know, we would be able to adopt her. So immediately, you know, I mean, of course, she was perfect. I mean, smiling, happy, healthy. Just, we fell in love instantly with her. And
Now, and this wasn't just an immediate thing, right? You finished your application and opened your home, and then had to wait for
we did,
her
and
to show
we
up.
turned down some like older children because I had this longing for a baby. I didn't want to miss a thing.
Right.
You know, I had not gotten to experience being a mother yet, so I didn't want to miss anything, and I was waiting on my baby that God was going to give me. So we waited, and then they finally called me about this baby girl, and I remember Valerie was in my chair when I got that call, and she was so excited, and she, you know, we were both just crying, and so yeah, we went to get Emma that day, and gosh, she was just so sweet, and you know, things looked good for a couple of months there. I mean, you know, for us to adopt her, I mean, you know, it's a hard thing to talk about because for things to look good for us to adopt her, that also means things weren't looking good for her birth parents. And you know, looking back now, I see that more clearly, that there was a lot more to it, and we were only looking at it from our angle. But anyway, about 3 months into us having her, we were made aware that there was a family member, a distant family member, that was stepping up to take her. But it was going to be a process. So we knew they were going to take her, but we still had her in our home for at least another month before they actually got her. Yeah. And so that was just a kick in the gut.
That was heartbreaking. Knowing they're coming to get her soon.
But we were still praying. We were still believing for a miracle, honestly, at that point. We were just praying that God would intervene and that
They changed their minds.
I reached
Exactly.
out to the family members
Yeah.
and told them, you know, that we love her and that we will maintain contact with them and that we, you know, basically begging for this baby.
Right.
And
We weren't just foster. We wanted to adopt. We wanted
yeah,
her to be
our
with us forever.
families loved her.
Yeah.
My parents grieved just as much as we did. I mean, it was not only a kick for us; it was for them too.
And for everybody in your circle, everybody.
Everybody that had been
friends,
cheering
family.
for us and praying for us,
Yeah.
and you know, that thought this was it too. But anyway, they ended up adopting her or taking her in, and that was probably the hardest thing I've ever been through.
Yeah.
It felt like a death because with foster care, we didn't get any follow-ups. We didn't. They can't tell us how she's doing.
They wouldn't.
We
I
can't
begged
check
them
up on
to
her. I mean,
tell
her
us.
location is secret. I mean, just, you know, she was gone. Like one day she woke up with us, and then that night she wasn't there. So, you know, that was.
So you're trusted to take care of all of her needs on Tuesday, and by Wednesday night,
She's
you're
gone and all her
completely
stuff's
cut
gone.
off,
I mean,
and you can't even know
I
how
packed
she's
up all.
doing.
I mean, packing up her stuff.
And that
you know,
family
'cause-
member blocked us. They complained that they don't want to have anything to do with us.
Sure,
They wouldn't tell us anything.
because they felt threatened. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
we
sure.
just wanted to know how she was doing. I just want to know she was okay. They won't tell us anything.
Okay, so we know there's a happy ending, but but this
We
is
went through a dark
this
period
is
after
a
that.
this is
That
a
was
heck of a
the-
moment in your life.
Yeah, that was hard.
So
And
what?
Jerry and I grieved it very differently.
Okay.
I was still trying to seek God and trying to find some kind of hope in all of it, even though it felt pretty bleak. But Jerry, we both were angry, but I would say Jerry went through the worst anger. We were both mad at God. I can remember being so mad at God that I didn't pray for a while. I mean, I just
Honestly,
didn't.
I did too. I was
and,
mad.
And when I did
I was mad
pray,
at
I
everybody.
told God how mad I was. I can remember that, and just I just couldn't believe that. I just felt so forsaken. Just
Right.
like, why would you dangle this, delicious carrot right in front of me that seems to be the answer to all my prayers that I have been praying for years, and then just yank it, because you wanted to see me get hurt?
Right.
Like, what kind of God does that? I
Right.
mean, honestly, I'm just being real.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how I felt. I just felt tricked. I felt forsaken, not loved, and just not worthy. I felt not worthy of such a gift. There was a lot. That was a heavy moment.
So there was a part of you, that's a really interesting way to perceive that, that you had the chance, but maybe something in you was not,
I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, I had not.
and so he took her away. Wow. Wow. That's a heavy
It is.
burden to carry.
Yeah. There was
Yeah.
a lot. There was a
And
lot of anger.
in my heart of hearts, I knew that wasn't true, but I still had to go through those emotions and feelings to come out on the other side. And I had to tell God how mad I was. I mean, he knew how mad I was.
Right.
He knew how hard he knew I was thinking it. So I knew he knew I was thinking it. So I just told him a lot how mad I was and how much I didn't understand.
So you processed it with God kind of face to face.
Yeah.
Kind of one-on-one personally. Jerry, you processed it a little differently.
I kind of withdrew, and I didn't pray at all. And
I mean, he
I was-
stepped down from the council.
I was
He
mad.
stepped
That's the
down. I mean,
reason.
he didn't want to be involved in church anymore.
I didn't
It was
even
like
wanna
pulling
come to-
teeth to get him to go to church.
I didn't even want to come to church.
Yeah. And didn't.
It didn't
And
for a
didn't for a
while.
long time.
Yeah. And stepped down from stuff at work. I just didn't want to be around anybody really.
Yeah.
It's still kind of hard for me to talk about.
Yeah.
It was hard for me as a wife to watch him go through that because, he's this tough guy, and that's the only time I've ever seen him cry. And still to this day he cries talking about her. Oh, bless you.
Bless you.
So yeah, that was tough.
So
really tough.
I don't want to wallow in it, but I want to, and this is part of a series where we talk about real things that happen in our lives, triumphs and tragedies. And I want to make sure that we point out the fact that you guys are real Christians, right? Real believers. You had real faith that this was an answer from God to years-long prayers.
Yes.
And then she's just gone. And you're left to deal with all of the fallout of that, mourning like it's a death, because it really is the death of a dream. The death, in some sense, the death of your faith, because you had believed so strongly that this was a clear answer
And
from
I thought,
God.
how, and people, I can remember people, they meant well, but they would say, God's got something better for you on the other side. Just wait, just hold on. He's got something better for you. And that insulted me so much because I thought, you're telling me there's something better than her?
Yeah.
Like, are you saying she wasn't good enough? She was so good enough. Like, how, to me, the thought of something better meant she wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, she was our everything. I mean,
We know people meant well
They
by
meant
it,
well.
but it kind of hurt our feelings.
Yeah.
When people would say that.
And it,
but it's true. It was true.
It trivializes,
true.
though. It trivializes a
Yeah.
little bit what you're going through.
Right.
And it is true. And then a lot of those people had probably been through some hard things, and they knew it was going to be okay on the other side.
Right.
We couldn't see it yet.
So what do you say to somebody who is in the midst of a tragedy like that, in the midst of, I don't know if that's the right word, but it sure felt tragic.
It felt
knowing y'all
tragic.
and loving
Yeah.
y'all and kind of walking through this with you, it sure felt like a tragedy. What do you say to somebody in the midst of something like that that's not offensive and that's not flippant and that's not like coffee cup Christianity?
That's actually one thing I learned through that was how to talk to people who are grieving or have gone through a tragedy, because I can remember always feeling like I felt so much pressure to say the perfect thing that's going to just magically make them feel better, but you're not going to make somebody feel better. You're not. So the best thing to say is just, I am so sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
praying for you. That's it. That's all you got to say.
Yeah, I love
because
you. I'm
I
praying
love
for
you.
you.
I'm praying. I'm so sorry. That's it.
That's it.
They don't need any words of wisdom. They don't need any advice. They just need to know that you love them and that you're praying for
Don't
them.
give me 20
That's it.
scriptures to read. just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't need a silver lining speech. I
Yeah.
just need you to to
Yeah.
acknowledge that I'm hurting and tell me you love me. That's it.
Yeah,
And to know that you're not going through it alone.
Yeah.
right.
Right? That ministry of presence, that
Yeah.
we're here with you. We don't know what the road looks like. We don't know what it feels like, but we're just going to be with you.
And you just have to go through that grieving period. And
Yeah.
just,
We had to go through.
we
divorce.
leaned on each other.
And
I mean,
another way I dealt with it, that I had to sort of drag Jerry onto my bandwagon, but immediately I can remember that very same day I said, I said, I know we're going to have to grieve. I know this sucks today. Excuse the word sucks, but
Yep.
it just did. That was the word for it.
It did.
But I said, I want to adopt. I'm not done. I want to adopt. I still feel called. We're going to have to grieve. But I said, I'm not going to sit in this house and just cry every day. So let's start fixing this house up to sell it. Let's let that be our project. I just needed to get busy doing something.
Really. So that was day
That
one,
was that
that
day.
decision to sell the house.
I was like, we're going to start fixing up this house and we're going to sell it and we're going to do private adoption. We're not going through
Wow.
foster care.
We'll
We're not
start-
doing that. I can't risk a heartbreak like that again.
Yeah, and for some people that turns out great. And
Yeah.
we spoke about this off camera because you
Yeah.
didn't want to throw the whole process under the bus because it's
Right.
worked for so many people.
right.
But I don't know of anybody who would fault you for saying, okay, we're not doing that
No,
again.
and foster care is such a call of God, and we need so many more foster parents. And I haven't completely ruled it out of my book. In the future, I don't know about Jerry, but I
don't know if I can
still
handle
have
That's
a
another
soft.
conversation.
I have a soft spot in my heart for foster care. I really do. But
Yeah.
for us, in that time, I did not feel like that was our story anymore.
Yeah. So you made this decision, so now we can kind of keep plowing through towards a happier ending.
Yeah.
So you made this decision to go to private
we
adoption.
grieved, and we kept grieving, but as we were grieving, we were fixing up our house and finishing touches, and we had it. We didn't really have to put it on the market, but we started we let somebody come look at it around Christmas time, I guess.
Yeah.
And that actually was a God thing too. Morgan, your daughter, actually knew someone who was looking for a house and said, "Hey,
Wow.
she kind of set that up, and they were the first ones we let come look at it, and they made an offer the second time they looked at it, and
Hey, wow.
that worked
Have to
out.
put it on the
So
market or anything.
That's fantastic.
yeah, so that
Did
one,
did
it's
Morgan
like
get
the
any
moment-
commission off that? 'Cause
No,
I-
she didn't.
Okay.
But I'm
Just
giving
wanna
her a
make sure.
shout out now, Morgan. Thank you, Mo.
Should have
that's
bought her dinner.
Yeah, we need
That's
to do
good.
something.
So
We'll-
tell me
we'll-
what's the decision about? Because having a family, you need a house. Why was it that you wanted to consider selling your house?
Because we got a really good deal on that house. It was a fixer-upper.
Okay.
So we knew the updates we had done and we're continuing to do, we were going to get a pretty good profit off of it. So
And go in private adoption.
private adoption, we knew we'd need
You
it.
were going to need it.
So that was the motivation.
So you got a buyer right out of the
But
gate.
I would say from the moment we started making those decisions and like putting it on the market, it's like once we said, okay, this is what we're going to do, it feels impossible. We've always thought private adoption was impossible. But once we decided we were going to step out in faith and sell our house and just do it, is when things started moving quickly and easily, I would say. I mean, even though it really still didn't get easy, but, things started working out. I mean, we only had to show our house to one person. It sold at the ask price.
Yeah.
Just things like that. And I will say, we feel like, if you go by due dates and all that, he was conceived around the same time we closed on our house.
Wow.
So we stepped out in faith in selling our house, our place to live, and our son was being conceived. So
That's incredible.
it's pretty cool looking back.
So we talked about not long after, I guess, Teddy was born. I did the message in the fall of last year where we talked about Peter getting out of the boat, and we talked about that gave birth to the Jericho Project and all of that kind of thing. But I remember in that preparation for that message saying that Peter didn't have the ability to walk on the water until he got out of the boat. That the provision came after the obedience. That what you need comes
Right.
between the realization of it and the obedience to it. So you sold the house in a step of faith, in obedience to what you knew God was calling you to do. And it was after or as you were doing that he actually comes into existence.
And his conception, too, was also a statistic because his birth mother had just had an IUD put in like 4 or 5 months before that, was not supposed to be pregnant,
Wow.
but got pregnant anyway. And he was just meant to be.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I don't want you to disclose anything private or personal. More like this whole thing's not been private
it's
and
pretty personal.
But private adoption is expensive. Like, we're not just talking about thousands, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah, and we didn't really know. We knew a ballpark. Like, I knew it was probably going to be at least 20, maybe 30. But the more we looked into it, I was like, okay, it might be more like 30 or 40, or, it's
Or
a
more.
lot.
Or more.
The earlier you get
And some are
involved,
more expensive than others. Some agencies charge more than others. Excuse me.
because you're actually, the earlier you get involved, you're helping the birth mother. Sometimes they can't work. You're helping pay her bills.
Okay.
So that
Well, all
gets
that goes
factored.
through the agency.
Yeah, it goes to
Yeah.
the agency, but that is
But that's
factored.
part of why it's so
factored in.
expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
And legal
So-
fees and,
Yeah, it's a lot of legal fees.
So you start raising money, you put back a little nest egg from what you got.
We put back $30,000, which we thought would cover everything.
Right.
And we know, because we had some debt we needed to pay off too, so we
Sure.
paid off some debt.
Yeah.
And we lived with my parents for about 3 or 4 weeks, and we found a rental after that. Or we had the rental lined up, but we couldn't get in for 3 or 4 weeks. So, and that was another thing. In September, around the time we started fixing up the house, I knew we would want to sell around the holidays, and I was talking to one of my customers about it, and she said, well, I've got a rental house that's going to be vacant around that time you sell, if y'all are interested in that. Ended up working out. I mean, just,
Wow.
it's like God already had our steps. All we had to do was walk. He
Wow.
had everything laid
You're just
out.
connecting dots.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
ordering your steps.
Yeah.
The hard part, though, is you can't see 3 dots ahead.
No, I can't.
Right.
It's 1 dot
So
at a
we
time.
it's like he had our hand, but we were still walking in the dark.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
He was leading, and we felt like he was leading, but it was still like, I can't see anything.
Now, how difficult is it, having been through what you just went through a few months before, when you also felt God's hand and direction and peace to move forward? How hard was it to step out in faith again?
It was very hard because you're still on guard. I still felt like I wanted to protect my heart
Protect your heart from God.
from heartbreak that I knew
Yeah.
he was capable of, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I knew nothing was a promise. We're not promised anything, but I think another hard lesson he allowed me to learn through that was, I know a lot of time, like it was easy for me to say, why me? Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
But the better question is, I think, is why not me? What makes me so special that I'm not supposed to go through stuff?
Wow.
Why is everything supposed to be rosy just for me and not for anybody else? So I think in all this, he's teaching me, you go through the hard stuff and the crappy stuff and the horrible stuff so that I can teach you and so that you can grow in your faith. And, it's really hard. It's not fun to go through. But
Not at all.
But when you're on the other side, you see the growth. But
Right. Wow.
I don't know. I'm not. I feel like I'm too. I don't want to act like we've got it all figured out because we don't. But definitely we learned a lot going through all this.
No question. So you sold the house, got all that ready, and you start pursuing the private adoption. You found an agency pretty quickly. How soon was it that you connected with the birth mom?
Well, we ended up. I wanted to use an adoption consultant, a Christian adoption consultant, because they have a wider net. So they work with multiple agencies. So I knew it would cast a wider net for us that. We could work with several agencies and reach out to several birth moms instead of just one agency with, a limited amount of birth moms.
Right.
So I thought that would speed our process up, maybe. I mean, it's an added cost, but we thought it was, at this point,
It was worth it.
Yeah.
They put out a network. I mean, they go pretty much nationwide.
Yeah, so they would
not-
start sending, after we did our home study, they would start sending us different situations. Then they would send them to everybody that was signed up with them. Like, this is birth mom, and they'd give her name and give the situation. And if we felt like we wanted to present to that birth mom, which means our consultants would send our information to her agency, and then her agency would let her look at our profile book. We had to make a profile book all about us. And our consultants wanted us to write our birth moms a letter. So we had to write her a letter. And so every time we presented, that was what would happen. So I think we presented to 7 or 8
Oh, wow. I didn't know
before
that.
before Teddy's birth mom picked us. But that's really good because there's a lot of people who get told no 20, 30, 40 times before they're chosen. So for us to not have to wait that long, I mean, we signed up with our consultants in April or May, and we were chosen in July, and that's really fast.
Wow. But what a remarkable, it's really ironic to me because when you think of the adoption process, you think of agencies marketing children to different parents hoping to be chosen. But this is the opposite of that. You're
Birth
marketing
mom.
yourself to the birth moms to be chosen.
Because she wants to feel comfortable, and it was a cool experience to learn about that because, you know, I have a lot of compassion for these birth moms. I mean, they're choosing life, and they're choosing love, really, because they know they're not capable.
Right.
Whatever their circumstances are, they've chosen that they think they're not capable, or it's just not a good situation for these babies. So they want to choose the parents that they feel like would be the best for their child. And so that was heavy for me, I know, because I did most of the letter writing. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
So I took that into account every time I reached out to
Turned
a
out
birth
good.
mom because I couldn't imagine what they were going through.
Right.
Choosing
Yeah.
this. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
And
So-
being turned down again, that was
The first time we got a no was hard, I think,
that
because I was
was
so excited
kinda,
to present to a birth mom, you know.
Yeah.
So the first one kind of hurt my feelings, but after that it was like,
yeah.
Yeah. At some point, do you recognize, though, that this is just part of the journey
Yeah.
to get to the one that God
yeah,
has
and I
for you?
wanted to be chosen too, I think.
Of
I think I
course.
wanted to wait until somebody wanted me to parent their child.
Okay.
Right.
So to me, that was a big deal. So I was good with waiting because another woman is choosing me to raise her child.
Right.
That's a lot.
Powerful.
So I was okay with waiting for that.
So you get a yes.
We get a yes.
And so I don't know what the typical relationship is between birth mom and adoptive or potential adoptive parents, prospective adoptive parents. But what was your experience like with her?
Great. I mean, she was so easy to talk to, very chatty, which made things less awkward,
Right.
and sweet, and just matter of fact. I was able to ask her very honest questions about her lifestyle and about, you know, I just wanted to know what to expect with
Sure.
him, and she was very forthcoming. And in fact, she was scared that we would change our minds and not want him if she told us some things. And I was like, girl, we ain't changing our minds.
Right.
So I thought that just kind of threw me for a loop, that she was scared that we were going to say no.
It's interesting because you don't ever know what somebody else's journey's been like. So you always assume that yours has been the worst or the most shameful or the most difficult. You just don't know who you're sitting across from, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we actually got to meet his birth dad too.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for that too, because that's not always the case. Sometimes
Right.
they're not involved, but
Right.
they were still together as a couple, and
Yeah. It's
so-
very uncommon.
yeah. And so and so all the communication goes through the agency. So they set up a phone call for us first. It was a few weeks after we were chosen, and so we got to talk on the phone, and that's when they told us it was a boy. And so then we set up a meeting with them. So Jerry and I went down a couple weeks after that, I guess, to where they were, which is about 8 to 10 hour drive.
Yeah. Close
We went
to
down for the weekend, and we
Tampa.
had a 3-hour lunch with them, one of the ladies from the agency, and then birth parents. And that was awesome. We were nervous wrecks, I can remember.
Yeah.
But it was so good.
Yeah,
I mean,
went very smooth.
and we got our picture made, and, you know, I had my hand on her belly. It was just sweet.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't long after that he was born, but and I got to go down, and she let me go to doctor's appointments with her, those last couple of appointments. And we had lunch together every time. And, I mean, it was just crazy. But it's still in the back of my mind, I'm thinking she can still change her mind.
Right.
The reality is she can still change her
Yeah,
mind.
because
And
until
she
her
has every right to change her
Yeah,
mind.
until her signature's on the paper.
Right, right. And she has every right to. And that's what I kept praying. I'm like, I mean, I knew that was her right. He wasn't ours yet. But she kept reaching out and kept saying this is what she wanted. And this, I mean, I felt like she kept reassuring us, even though I wasn't asking her to. I was trying not to put any pressure on her. But I just feel like it was just easy.
Yeah.
Easy with her, the relationship.
Yeah.
So you were there not just in the hospital when he was born.
She was scheduled for an induction at 7 a.m. and she invited Jerry and I to be there. So we all got to the hospital at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And he wasn't born until 8 p.m. So we spent 13 hours in the room with her and the birth dad, 13 hours all together.
Wow.
Until he was born. And she let us be there. I mean, I just think that's a miracle that I got. She said she didn't want us to miss out on that experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
On the birth of our son.
And we got to meet all her family and her father's family.
Her
they were
parents
all great.
And his parents. It was all, we got pictures made with all of them. I mean, it was just a dream scenario. It was just God's grace.
Yeah.
Don't you think, though, it almost took a situation like that to help pull you along that journey, which was still a faith journey?
Right.
But it was a grace. It was the grace of God to say, yes, I'm still going to require that they step out on faith, because without faith it's impossible to please God.
Right.
But I'm going to give them so much support and comfort and reinforcement and assurance along the way. What an incredible story, though. So you were there for first cry.
Yes.
You heard it all.
I was the first one to hold him.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got to make those first decisions on do we want him to go ahead and get the hepatitis shot right away. The birth mom looked at me and said, ask her. And I said, yes, I want him. I mean,
Wow.
She could have made that decision.
Yeah, so your mom right off the bat. I mean,
to her. Yeah, I mean,
and
but
to
I
him.
still knew that they could not bring her the legal paperwork until it had been 48 hours or until she was discharged.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're still, like Jerry and I still had to go back to our
We're
condo.
still a little nervous.
That
She could
night,
still
we
change
had to
her
leave the
mind.
hospital
Yeah.
about an hour or two after he was born and just try to sleep. And then we were right back up at the
How'd that go?
hospital.
Not very good.
We got right back up to the hospital the next day, spent the whole day with him, then had to go back home or go back to where we were staying.
One more time, right?
One more time. And then it just so happened that the rental we were in that time, we had to move out of that second morning anyway. And so we were just praying because he had to be in the NICU for a few days. And we were just praying that the hospital was going to let us move in that day. That ended up working out.
We slept at the hospital on the bed.
The agency came up there that day about midday. She was ready to go. She had told the hospital she was ready to be discharged. She wanted to go. She couldn't go until the agency came to give her to see if she was ready to sign. Yeah. So Jerry and I were sitting in Teddy's NICU room with the baby, and I get a text from the birth mom that says, I just signed. Congratulations. I'm going home. And I couldn't believe that the birth mom just texted. Like, I cannot believe she just said, I just signed. Like, at that moment, I knew he was ours. Like,
wow.
And she, with her telling me that, I was just special. I thought, just
absolutely.
I'm giving you my child, basically.
But did your heart not drop when you saw her?
Yeah. So I knew the agency. Yes, I was afraid she was saying, I'm so sorry I couldn't go through with it.
Yeah.
So then I knew the ladies were on their way to us for us to do our paperwork. But
Unbelievable.
so at that point, I got to call my parents, and we got to call and tell everybody that it's official. And
wow. Now, not just your parents. You had quite the cheering section.
Yes, I did.
Back in
I had a lot of
Bremen
support,
waiting
a lot
on
of
you.
prayer warriors, and people that could not wait to hear the good news. And I couldn't share anything until
Of course.
that was signed.
Of
and
course.
the legal paperwork. And in the state of Florida, there's a lot less stress because when they sign, it's done. She doesn't get a period of time to change her mind or anything. So, like in Georgia, I think it's 10 days. But in Florida, we knew once she signed that we could just take a deep breath.
Yeah.
But we still couldn't leave.
We still couldn't
So
leave.
our journey was not even close to being over.
We still couldn't leave Florida
So tell me
because,
about that.
oh gosh.
We ended up moving different condos, 5 times?
I think we moved 4 or 5
my
times
Four or
while we were
five
in Florida.
times. They kept
we
getting
did get to
booked,
stay at
and
the
we had to
hospital.
move. We had to pack everything up and move to a different condo.
But anyway, it was fine. God took care of it all. But we couldn't leave Florida until ICPC, which is Interstate something placement of a child. You can't leave the state with the child until the state recognizes his adoption. So that just has to go through paperwork, and they're only open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And they can't even start the paperwork until he's discharged from the hospital.
Yeah.
So he wasn't discharged for 5 days.
Yeah.
So, you
So
know.
he had to be in NICU because of the birth mom's issues.
Sure.
So they had to make sure there was no problems with him.
Yeah.
So he
And
was
there
hooked
were
up to
no
monitor.
problems.
There wasn't. It was just precautionary.
But
he was born.
hooked up
He was
to-
born with nothing in his system. It was just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she had something in her system.
Sure.
Yeah,
He did not, but because she did, they had to hold him for 5
Of
days.
course.
right.
Which I think is another miracle because I've been praying for a healthy baby for how many years?
Yeah.
And praying for whether I carried the child or somebody else carried the child. I just prayed for this child's protection in the womb for years, whoever this child was going to be. And birth mom has something in her system, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
You tell me that's
That's
not God.
incredible. That's incredible. Wow.
So, and he's been a healthy boy ever since.
So there's one more part of the story, if you don't mind me asking about this, because y'all are very personable people, but also private people. You don't just put your business out there for everybody.
Yeah.
But you had sold your house and thought you were prepared financially,
Yeah.
and you discovered that you weren't.
No, so his situation, when it first came across my email, I immediately dismissed it because of the price tag. It was one of the higher ones I had seen. I think it was like
40 something.
40,000,
Yeah.
maybe 45, maybe. I think it was 45.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a lot. And it was more,
Way more than you had.
Way
Yeah.
more than we had. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was like, no, we'll just wait till the next one, But then the next day, I don't know what it was, but I thought, I'm just really going to sit down. I've got some time. I'm going to reread this email just read it. And I was drawn to this birth mom because she had been a hairdresser.
Okay.
And she was looking for a Christian family. And I don't know, I immediately felt there was a couple other things that kind of I thought she and I would have in common. So I thought, all right, Lord,
Yeah.
all right. I'm
Yeah.
just going to do it. I'm going to step out in faith again. And if this is our baby, then I know you're going to
Yeah.
get us there.
Provide for us
Wow.
And
somehow.
sometimes you get an answer within a day. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days before you know
Right.
if they chose you or not. So usually you get an email if it's a no. So I was checking my email like constant.
Sure.
But one day at work, I got a call from the girl from our consultants, and I had her name in my phone in bold. So when it came up, I was like, okay, she doesn't just call.
Right.
So I was like, hello. And she said, hello.
Yeah.
She said, do you want a baby? And I'm like, it was just,
Oh, goodness.
tears flowed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just so happened that I had a break at that time. I wasn't doing anything.
Okay.
I was sitting there chit-chatting with my coworkers.
So you didn't cry on somebody's hair or anything?
No, it was
Yeah.
awesome. I had a minute to just celebrate and rejoice and call Jerry and my mom and before I had to do somebody else's hair. But it was a cool day to get like that unbelievable moment where you get the yes.
So there's the high of getting that moment, and then
then it's
there's
like,
the
oh,
reality
crap.
of we still have
We got to raise some money.
Yeah.
And not only the money that was still needed for his adoption, but we knew we were going to need travel money.
right.
I
You
was
were
going to
in
have to take some
Florida
time
for
off
a
work.
month and a half or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Without pay.
And as a hairdresser, you don't cut hair.
Yeah,
You don't
so
get paid.
I knew we
Right.
were
I
going
didn't
to
get paid
need.
either.
And you were there too. She was there before you.
She was there longer than me, but I
Yeah.
was still there.
You were there for 2 or 3
4
weeks.
Yeah.
At least 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't get.
Wow.
without pay.
So
we
what
knew-
did God? Because I know this was a God thing too. So how did He show up on this end?
Well,
end of it?
what we the last thing I wanted to do was ask for money. I'm very prideful about that.
Yeah.
But I knew there was no other way. I mean, there was no amount of T-shirts selling or, any of these other, we didn't have time for that because he was due so soon and the agency needed their money.
Right.
That was my great idea. We'll just have T-shirts and car wash.
And
Yeah.
I looked into
Lemonade
all that,
stand.
and you don't raise.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of effort for not a lot of return.
Yeah.
He's so sleepy. So I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna get on one of these. I tried to find I found a Christian crowdfunding site that is specifically for adoption.
Okay.
That would give people their tax whatever
Yeah,
write-off if they
501c3,
wanted it.
Yeah.
And of course they would take a small percentage of it, but I didn't care. I was just like, we need money. So I had also felt led when we first started the private adoption journey. I'd started a blog kind of on Facebook, so people kind of knew our backstory, that were following that, and so I shared our crowdfunding thing and the whole situation. I was very transparent on social media because I wanted people. I don't know if it's pride or what, but I just didn't want people to think, here's somebody asking for money, I
'Cause
wanted
you
them to
see that
know
a
our,
lot.
I wanted them to
Right.
know our story and that we tried to do
Yeah.
this on our own, but,
Right.
It just costs a lot more.
and I think it was just God humbling me and just saying, look, it's okay if you ask for help. I am your help, and so God poured it out. There were people that gave that we don't even know who they are and why they gave, but they saw our story and they felt led to give.
Wow.
So,
Like
people
people-
that gave crazy amounts of money that we don't know, have never met.
Wow.
And
People
God,
that I actually went to high school, I haven't seen in a long, long time, gave money, and that was amazing.
family members gave over and abundantly. I mean, I was so humbled by that because it made me immediately feel so selfish because why have I never given that big before?
Wow.
Because it blessed us so much for them to give
Yeah.
that it made us want to be better givers.
Yeah.
So I guess that was just another little nugget God's throwing in there to teach us, trying to make us better givers, and by putting us in a situation where we relied on people giving.
Right.
So he poured it out. I think we had a goal of 22,000. I think that's what it was. I don't even know the exact numbers now, but I think we met it in like a month.
Wow.
I think we did we had one fundraiser where we made some money too.
Fundraiser here.
And of course my parents gave some, and anything that was over and above that 22 was going to go towards our travel and
Right.
being off work. And,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, there was just enough and a little more.
Yeah.
Like we had all our bills paid.
Yeah.
I still don't know who paid our rent for 2 months. Somebody paid our rent at our
Somebody
house
paid
for
our
2
rent.
months.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about that while I was gone.
Yeah.
Just crazy stuff. Because God's God, and when he does something big, he does it.
Yeah. And because he's good.
Yeah, because he's a good father. And I think he was just saying, see, when you just trust me, I make it easy.
Yeah.
And I make it happen. And what felt impossible became so possible.
Yeah.
And so, so then we welcomed our sweet little baby, and he's just been a joy ever since. So
It's
So-
amazing.
It's Mother's Day.
my first real Mother's Day, and I'll never forget, I celebrated Mother's Day when we had our foster baby. But it didn't feel, it did feel like a pretend because she wasn't ours.
Right.
Even though we still celebrated a little.
Yeah.
But this time it's going to be real. And I hate that we can't be at church for it.
I know.
And I think I was sharing with you before this that even Mother's Day is sad, but I still love celebrating my mom. I mean, there's
Right.
happy things about Mother's
Right.
Day and my grandmother, but baby dedication day was always the worst.
Okay.
There were some Sundays that I chose to stay home because I knew I would sob through the service because baby dedication makes me so emotional. Because I just, I guess women who have had trouble having families understand that longing
Yeah.
for a baby and to be a mom. And so that was always a hard day. I always dreaded baby dedication day. So anyway, it's just, it's cool now that, I don't know. It was always hard for me to see this side. I never knew if I was going to be a mom. I had to get to a place
Right.
in my Christian walk where I had to decide if I was going to be okay if he never gave me a baby. Am I still going to love God even if he never gives me a baby?
Yeah.
Do I really have a choice? No. I mean, I didn't. I can remember having that conversation with God that I will still love you. I will still serve you. If you choose not to give me a baby, I know it's because you know it's better for me. And that, I'm getting emotional just thinking that because I wanted a baby so bad, but I knew I had no choice but to follow God. And if he wanted me to not be a mom, I knew it was for a reason. So the fact that I am a mom now is just, it's awesome. Like, I'm so thankful.
Absolutely. So I was going to ask you what your advice is for the Jenny of 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or for the moms who are joining us live or watching us at some other point, and they still hate Mother's Day and they still hate Baby Dedication Day, and are still in the throes of that. But I think you just answered that. You have to get to a place.
You have to surrender and just say, I mean, even when I got to that place with God, that I knew I would serve him and love him, even if I couldn't be a mom. I still kind of knew I'd be a mom because it was still such a desire of mine. Mm-hmm. And he says he'll give us the desires of our heart. Mm-hmm. And I held on to that for so long. I'm like, okay, I really desire to be a mom. So where's my baby? But I also had to get to the place where I was okay with, am I okay with being a mom even if I didn't birth that baby? I mean, so that was a journey, even getting to the decision to adopt, because for so long it was just, I just wanted to be pregnant. So, I mean, it took me a long time to get to the place of considering adoption. Yeah. And I never thought he'd be on board with adoption, but
wow.
That was God. I think I would just say, just be as real as you can with God, because he knows your thoughts anyway. Yeah. He knows it all. He knows your deepest desires that you're not going to tell everybody. So just be real, and
it's not always going to be easy, but you got to keep your faith.
It's not going to look how you thought it would. But I think he'll bless, as long as you feel peace about the direction you're headed in your journey to be a mom, he's going to bless it. Yeah. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. Yeah. It's going to hurt. Yeah. But I'm going to use the words that used to get on my nerves so bad. But there is something better on the other side. It's going to be okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow. Jerry, what do you say to somebody who is mad at God right now?
Oh.
Because I worried about you.
Yeah, I know. It was tough. You just got to keep praying. Don't withdraw from God. And things I learned is if you're angry at God, tell him. Yeah. I'm mad at you right now. What you did to me was not fair. I didn't like it. Yeah. And just keep your faith and keep moving forward. And he's got a better plan. You don't understand it at the time. Wasn't sure it ever was going to happen. Right. But he's got a better plan for you. You just got to keep the faith.
Amen. Listen, thank y'all for taking the time to tell your story, for sharing with everybody what you've been through. I think it's important for people of faith to share their journeys, because I think we do have this concept that when you're following the will of God, when you're going to get whatever he's got for you, that it's a straight line, it's a 4-lane highway, right? And you've got police escort and everything's going to be great. But man, there's some potholes and there's some hairpin turns and some detours and things you didn't see coming. The good news is you got to where he was taking you. Mm-hmm. Right. Your faith is deepened. Mm-hmm. Right. You're humble, appreciative, grateful, and
we couldn't have done it alone. We couldn't have done it on our own.
I just want to thank everybody that helped us out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, everybody
that wouldn't have happened.
There for a while, I felt like I owed people. Like, I feel like we need to pay them back. But my mom's like, they gave because they wanted to. That's like, right. God provoked their hearts. They gave. God gave. Yeah. I'm like, okay. Yeah. it's just hard for me to imagine that our community pulled together for us like that. It's just really humbling, and we're so thankful because there he is.
You got people.
Yeah.
You got people.
We got connections.
You got connections to the Father.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Jenny, Jerry, thank you for sharing today. And I've been waiting to say Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.